It was an unusually slow morning at the car dealership in Dallas, Texas. The staff, including the experienced managers, were used to these occasional lulls and didn't think much of it. The dealership had a diverse range of vehicles, from affordable family cars to luxurious high-end models. The employees were adept at identifying potential buyers from mere visitors. This ability had become almost instinctive for them over the years. As the large glass doors of the dealership swung open, an elderly man shuffled in. His name was Harold Green, a 78-year-old retired schoolteacher. He carried a small, worn canvas bag and moved with the slow, deliberate steps of someone who had weathered many years. His clothes were shabby. A worn-out cowboy shirt over a plaid shirt, loose-fitting pants, and an old hat with a sagging brim. The experienced managers, including the senior manager, Mr. Thompson, immediately dismissed him. Mr. Thompson, a sharp and haughty man, barely glanced at Harold before concluding that he was not a potential buyer. The staff shared knowing looks, assuming Harold was just there to admire the expensive cars without any real intention or means to buy one. Harold began to examine the cars with great interest, moving from one vehicle to the next with meticulous care. His eyes sparkled as he inspected the sleek designs and shiny exteriors. The staff watched him with amusement, their smirks barely concealed. Harold, seemingly oblivious to their mocking glances, continued his exploration. He showed particular interest in the most expensive car on display, a high-end model that gleamed under the showroom lights. "What's the engine capacity of this beauty? And its clearance? Can I look at the interior?" Harold asked in a quiet, hoarse voice. Mr. Thompson, annoyed by Harold's persistence, approached him. "The price of this car has increased, and it's actually reserved for someone else," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "But why is that? There's a price tag on the car. Doesn't it mean the car is for sale?" Harold objected, feeling the snide look of the senior manager. "Mr. Green, you see, another person has decided to buy this car. Moreover, the price of this car increased due to an increase in the cost of imported parts. Anyway, I think you should try the used car rental service. I'm sure they will find something more suitable for your age and financial condition," Mr. Thompson replied, his voice loud enough for the other employees to hear, triggering a burst of laughter among them. Only one person wasn't laughing, Jake Lawson, a 26-year-old junior financial advisor who had recently started working at the dealership. Unlike his colleagues, Jake felt a pang of empathy for Harold. To him, Harold looked like a vulnerable lamb surrounded by a flock of hyenas. Unable to tolerate the senior manager's contempt for the elderly man, Jake stepped closer. "Mr. Thompson, can the man see the car after all? He's still our client, isn't he?" Jake suggested quietly. Mr. Thompson responded by quietly gritting his teeth, then looking at Jake with such hostility that Jake felt completely out of place. He stepped back, defeated. Meanwhile, Harold stood there patiently, waiting for the manager to open the car door so he could examine the interior. Instead, Mr. Thompson called security. A burly guard approached and, waving his baton, escorted Harold to the exit. "I think you'd better leave. The car is very expensive and you aren't exactly young. You might accidentally damage something inside," Mr. Thompson said, glad to rid the dealership of Harold so easily. Humiliated, Harold walked away, tears welling up in his eyes. Outside, he finally allowed himself to cry. At that moment, the dealership administrator noticed the canvas bag Harold had left behind. Unwilling to touch it, she used her foot to push it towards the exit. The other employees laughed, appreciating the joke. Jake, feeling a mix of anger and pity, silently picked up the bag and went outside. He caught up with Harold a short distance away. "Sir, you forgot your bag," Jake said, touching Harold's shoulder and handing it to him. Harold looked surprised and grateful. "Thank you, young man," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Jake, embarrassed by his colleague's behavior, apologized. "I'm really sorry for what happened inside. They mistook your appearance for something it's not." Harold smiled weakly and opened his bag, revealing bundles of $120 bills, each neatly strapped with elastic bands. Jake's eyes widened in surprise. "I've been saving up for years," Harold explained. "I wanted to buy a car for my wife, Martha. She's battling cancer, and we had to sell our home to pay for her treatment. We moved into a trailer. I've been recycling cans and bottles, saving every penny, but the price of the car went up, and now I don't have enough." Jake listened, deeply moved by Harold's story. Determined to help, he knew he couldn't ignore the old man's plight. This moment marked the beginning of an unexpected and heartwarming journey. Jake couldn't shake the image of Harold Green from his mind as he returned to work. The sight of the elderly man's tears and the bundles of $120 bills in the worn canvas bag haunted him. The story Harold shared about his wife, Martha, battling cancer and their financial struggles touched Jake deeply. It was clear that Harold's intentions were genuine, and the humiliation he faced at the dealership was unjust and heart-wrenching. As Jake sat at his desk, his thoughts were consumed by Harold's plight. The dealership's atmosphere felt colder and more hostile than ever. He glanced at Mr. Thompson, who was discussing sales strategies with other managers, completely oblivious to the impact his actions had on Harold. The laughter and mockery of his colleagues replayed in Jake's mind, making him more determined to help Harold. After finishing his shift, Jake decided to visit Harold's trailer. He couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in his chest, the urge to right the wrong done to the kind old man. Jake drove through the winding streets of Dallas, following the directions Harold had given him earlier. He eventually arrived at a modest trailer park on the outskirts of the city. Harold's trailer was small and weathered, but there was a sense of warmth and resilience about it. Jake knocked on the door, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. Harold opened the door, looking surprised but pleased to see Jake. "Jake, what brings you here?" Harold asked, his eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and hope. "I couldn't stop thinking about what happened today," Jake admitted. "I want to help you, Mr. Green. I know you're trying to buy a car for Martha, and I believe you deserve that chance." Harold's eyes widened in disbelief. "That's very kind of you, Jake, but how could you possibly help me?" Jake handed Harold a small bundle of bills wrapped in cellophane. "This should cover the amount you're short of. It's not much, but it's enough to make up the difference." Harold took the bundle, his hands trembling. Tears welled up in his eyes again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you, Jake. This means the world to me and Martha." Jake smiled warmly. "You don't need to thank me. Just knowing that Martha will have her dream car is enough. Let's go back to the dealership tomorrow, and we'll make sure you get that car." The next morning, Harold and Jake returned to the dealership together. Harold was dressed differently this time, wearing a business suit and a crisp white shirt. He carried his canvas bag confidently, and the change in his appearance was striking. The staff at the dealership were taken aback, their previous judgments now replaced with confusion and curiosity. Mr. Thompson's expression shifted from surprise to unease as he saw Harold and Jake enter the showroom. He approached them with a forced smile. "Mr. Green, welcome back. How can we assist you today?" Harold didn't hesitate. "I'm here to buy the car I was interested in yesterday." Mr. Thompson glanced at Jake, sensing his influence. "Of course, Mr. Green. Right this way." The staff, now realizing the gravity of their mistake, scrambled to assist Harold. They opened the car doors, showed him the interior, and answered his questions with newfound respect. The atmosphere was entirely different from the previous day. Harold examined the car with the same meticulous care, but this time he felt a sense of validation and dignity. After ensuring that everything was in order, he pulled out the bundles of $120 bills from his bag and handed them to the cashier. The staff watched in awe as Harold completed the transaction, their previous assumptions shattered. As Harold signed the final paperwork, he looked at Jake with a grateful smile. "Thank you, Jake. You've made a dream come true for Martha and me." Jake nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. "I'm glad I could help, Mr. Green. Martha deserves this." With the keys in hand, Harold drove the new car off the lot. He couldn't wait to show Martha. When he arrived at their trailer, he found Martha sitting outside, enjoying the morning sun. Her face lit up with joy as she saw Harold pull up in the car. "Harold, is that?" Martha's voice trembled with excitement. "Yes, Martha. This is our car," Harold said, his voice filled with pride. Martha's eyes sparkled with happiness. "I can't believe it. It's beautiful." Harold helped Martha into the car, and they spent the day driving around their neighborhood, savoring every moment. Martha's laughter filled the car, a sound that had become rare in recent years. The joy and love they shared that day made the struggles and sacrifices worth it. As the sun set, they returned to their trailer, tired but content. Martha's face glowed with happiness, a stark contrast to the pallor of her illness. She hugged Harold tightly, whispering, "Thank you, my love. This is the best day of my life." Harold's heart swelled with emotion. "I'm just glad we could do this, Martha. You deserve it." That night, they sat together, reminiscing about their years together and the memories they had created. The new car parked outside symbolized not just a dream fulfilled, but the strength of their bond and the power of kindness. Martha's health continued to decline, but the joy of that day gave her a renewed sense of peace. Tragically, she passed away the next morning, her hand in Harold's. Despite the pain of her loss, Harold found solace in knowing he had made her final days special. Determined to honor Martha's memory, Harold decided to return to the dealership. He walked in with the car keys and documents, ready to make a significant gesture. This was not just an end, but a new beginning, one shaped by the kindness he had received and the bond he had formed with Jake. Harold Green walked into the car dealership with a heavy heart but a determined spirit. The recent memory of Martha's joy and the pain of her loss intertwined as he clutched the car keys and documents. The dealership employees, who now regarded him with a mix of respect and curiosity, were unaware of the purpose behind his visit. Jake Lawson, who had been instrumental in helping Harold fulfill Martha's dream, noticed Harold's arrival and quickly approached him. "Mr. Green, how are you holding up?" Jake asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. Harold managed a small smile. "I'm doing okay, Jake. It's been tough, but I wanted to see you. There's something I need to do." Jake guided Harold to a quiet corner of the showroom, away from the prying eyes of the other employees. "What's on your mind, Mr. Green?" Harold took a deep breath and handed Jake the car keys and documents. "I want you to have the car, Jake. You made it possible for Martha to have her dream, even if it was just for a short time. This car is yours now." Jake was taken aback. "Mr. Green, I can't accept this. That car means so much to you and Martha. It's a symbol of your love and your hard work." Harold shook his head, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "That's exactly why I want you to have it. You showed us kindness when we needed it most. You didn't judge me by my appearance or my situation. Instead, you helped make Martha's last days the happiest she'd had in years. This car isn't just a vehicle. It's a testament to compassion and the goodness in people. It belongs with you." Jake hesitated, understanding the depth of Harold's gesture. "Are you sure, Mr. Green?" Harold nodded firmly. "Absolutely. Martha would have wanted this. And I know you'll take care of it and cherish it as much as we did." Overwhelmed by the unexpected gift, Jake accepted the keys and documents, feeling a profound sense of gratitude and responsibility. "Thank you, Mr. Green. I promise I'll honor her memory." Harold smiled warmly. "I know you will, Jake. Now let's take it for a spin. I want to show you a few places that were special to Martha and me." The two men got into the car and drove through the city, Harold guiding Jake to various locations that held sentimental value. They visited the park where Harold had proposed to Martha, the small cafe where they had celebrated their anniversaries, and the church where they had renewed their vows. Each stop was a poignant reminder of the deep love and cherished memories Harold and Martha had shared. As they drove, Harold shared stories about their life together, painting a vivid picture of a love that had endured through thick and thin. Jake listened intently, his respect and admiration for Harold growing with each tale. "Thank you for sharing these moments with me, Mr. Green," Jake said as they returned to the dealership. "I feel honored to be part of your and Martha's story." Harold patted Jake's shoulder. "You're a good man, Jake. Remember, it's the small acts of kindness that make a big difference. Never underestimate the impact you can have on someone's life. The following days saw Jake driving the car with a sense of purpose and pride. He took great care of it, knowing it was more than just a means of transportation. It was a symbol of the bond he had formed with Harold and the love story that had inspired him. Word of Harold's gesture spread throughout the dealership, changing the atmosphere significantly. The employees, including Mr. Thompson, who had once been dismissive and judgmental, now treated customers with more respect and empathy. Harold's story had touched them all, reminding them of the importance of compassion and the lasting impact of kindness. Jake and Harold continued to spend time together, often driving around the places Martha had loved. Their friendship deepened, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. Harold found comfort in Jake's company, and Jake felt privileged to have gained a mentor and a friend in Harold. The car, now a treasured possession, served as a constant reminder of the profound lesson they had both learned. Never judge others by their appearances, and always strive to show compassion. For it is in these small acts that true humanity shines. As they drove through the city one evening, Harold turned to Jake and said, "You know, Jake, Martha once told me that even the smallest act of kindness can create ripples that touch countless lives. I think she was right." Jake nodded, his heart full. She was, Mr. Green. She truly was. As the weeks turned into months, Harold and Jake's bond grew stronger. They spent many evenings driving through Dallas, visiting places that held special memories for Harold and Martha. These drives were filled with stories, laughter, and moments of quiet reflection. Jake cherished these times, feeling fortunate to have Harold as a mentor and friend. One evening, as they were driving, Harold's voice broke the comfortable silence. "Jake, I've been thinking a lot about the future lately. I'm not getting any younger, and there are things I need to take care of." Jake glanced at Harold, concerned. "What do you mean, Mr. Green?" Harold sighed, looking out the window at the passing city lights. "I've lived a long and fulfilling life, but it's time to ensure that the kindness I've received continues to spread. I want to set up a small fund in Martha's name to help others who might be in need like we were." Jake's heart swelled with admiration. "That's a wonderful idea, Mr. Green. How can I help?" Harold smiled, appreciating Jake's enthusiasm. "I'd like you to help me manage it. You've got a good head on your shoulders, and more importantly, you've got a good heart. Together, we can make a real difference." They spent the next few weeks working on the details, setting up the Martha Green Kindness Fund. The fund aimed to provide financial assistance to families struggling with medical expenses, much like Harold and Martha had. It was a way to honor Martha's memory and ensure her legacy of kindness lived on. With the fund established, Harold felt a sense of peace. He knew that even after he was gone, the love and kindness that had defined his and Martha's lives would continue to touch others. Jake took on the responsibility with pride, dedicating himself to the cause with the same compassion and dedication that had endeared him to Harold. One bright spring morning, Harold and Jake went for one of their usual drives. The city was coming alive with the colors of blooming flowers and the sounds of chirping birds. As they drove, Harold seemed quieter than usual, lost in his thoughts. "Mr. Green, are you feeling okay?" Jake asked, noticing Harold's unusual silence. Harold turned to Jake, his eyes filled with warmth and gratitude. "I'm more than okay, Jake. I'm content. I've lived a good life and I've been blessed in many ways. I'm thankful for everything, especially for meeting you. You've given me hope and reminded me of the goodness in people." Jake felt a lump in his throat. "It's been an honor, Mr. Green. You've taught me so much about life and kindness. I'm the one who's grateful." They continued their drive, sharing memories and enjoying the beautiful day. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, Harold's voice broke the silence again. "Jake, I want you to promise me something." "Anything, Mr. Green," Jake replied. "Promise me you'll keep spreading kindness, no matter where life takes you." "It's the little things that make the biggest difference," Harold said, his voice full of wisdom and sincerity. Jake nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I promise, Mr. Green, I'll do my best to honor your legacy." A few weeks later, Harold passed away peacefully in his sleep. The news hit Jake hard, but he found solace in the fact that Harold had lived a fulfilling life and had left behind a legacy of kindness and compassion. The dealership staff, who had come to respect and admire Harold, attended his memorial service. Mr. Thompson, the once haughty manager, spoke at the service, expressing his regret for his earlier behavior and his admiration for Harold's unwavering kindness. Jake continued to manage the Martha Green Kindness Fund, dedicating his time and energy to helping those in need. Each act of kindness he performed was a tribute to Harold and Martha, ensuring their legacy lived on. The car, now a symbol of love and compassion, remained a treasured possession for Jake. He often drove it through the city, remembering the stories Harold had shared and the lessons he had learned. Each journey was a reminder of the profound impact one person's kindness can have on the world. In the end, Harold and Martha's story became a beacon of hope and compassion, reminding everyone who heard it of the power of small acts of kindness. Their legacy continued to inspire, proving that even the smallest gesture can create ripples that touch countless lives.